Recording has started.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 15th meeting of the Select Board. If I could have everyone put their phones on silent as we start, and if we could start with a roll call for attendance. Select person there. Roll call for attendance.
Daniel A. Roll call contemporary.
Thank you.
George Bailey, Chesley Drive. Jim Sakosha, 21 James Henry Drive.
Andrew Knapp, 96 Lindsay Point Road. Everyone, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda review and approval. One of the items that Administrator McIver brought up is moving the election poll item under old business up to immediately follow the budget presentation under appointments. Does anybody have any arguments or?
No objection.
With it? Are there any other changes? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Seconded by Select Person Sakosha.
There, aye. Bailey, aye. Sakosha, aye.
Knapp, aye. Public comment. First of two public comments.
If you're participating virtually and you'd like to make a public comment, you can raise your hand or enter a comment in the chat feature. If you're on your phone, press star 6 to unmute yourself. There'll be a second opportunity for public comment towards the end of the meeting. And if you're online, I have Jay Capiello with her hand up.
Go ahead.
Hi, I was thinking a library report, but is Melissa on? Because if she made it, she can do it.
I see an N, which could be Melissa Hewitt or another frequent flyer, Michael House.
Melissa, are you there?
MH Guest and Michael House is below.
Okay, I'll just go ahead with that. Melissa wanted everyone to know that the library is hosting an event with Jason Viola on November 16th, so tomorrow. And he's the author of 2 popular science comic series. And so he's talking about graphic novels and how he creates them, and you do need to register in advance. The shed is going to be delivered to the library by the end of the week. So there may be during a couple of hours. It's being delivered on Friday. Once the shed is delivered, then all the stored furniture in the meeting room of the library can be moved out. And so the trustees have approved in-person programming once the meeting room is cleared. And that will be available for town departments who want to have meetings there for 20 people or less. So another meeting space for folks. Masks are required for those 3 and older. And if other people, board-related commissions and boards want to use the meeting space during business hours, they can talk to the librarian about that and scheduling it. And the library is collaborating with the ECLC, the rec department, and the school foundation and the PTO to bring a drive-through Polar Express event to Barrington families on Saturday, December 4th from 12 to 2. So more to come about that on the website. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to make public comment? You can raise your hand or enter a chat. Else came in during that time, Chair Knapp.
Based on that, at this time, we'll close public comment. We have, let me hear. We have no public hearings, consent agenda, We have 4 items on the consent agenda since municipal officer administrator Caudle was out this evening.
Nothing additional to add.
So minutes from the November 1st meeting, the previously submitted signed request for signature, our new request for signature, and then the signature drive access agreement. Second, so I'll make the motion to approve it, seconded by select person Sakosha. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Mancheck, aye.
Sakosha.
Nap aye. For the record, I'd just like to state that select person Mantrek has joined the meeting. Appointments, budget presentations. We have tax and then town clerk.
Come on up, Linda.
So I've given you all a copy of my budget. I've checked off. I have not changed. It's pretty, I've tried to be very clear where all the money is going. I do need to get a new notary stamp this year. It's $75. And I offer the notary free to. It's just a service we can give to them.
Thank you.
We're very appreciative of it. And the only big line item is the new furniture for the new building, for our new office, because the desks now are not ours, as I understand it. Have to have desks.
There's a question by the budget committee on that note. This is part of the budget committee meeting. Actually, that was a technology committee meeting. So you remember last year during the budget process, there were various items, furniture and equipment for the new town hall. And there were questions about making sure that that was clear and transparent to the voters. The bond project that was approved was for the engineering, design, and construction of the new town hall. Like Linda said, the furniture that we've been using at the take with us. And so last year, the town clerk and the building office in this year's current budget had appropriated funds for furniture to buy and have stored. And Linda has money appropriated this year. The only additional funds in the 2022 budget that are pertinent to the new town hall project would be the bond interest. So should we borrow, all we'll have in the first year in 2022 would be an interest payment. So there's a $25,000 budget request in there, which is a carryover, same amount from last year. And then the additional funds for renting the town until we move into. So just wanted to make sure to answer that question the budget committee had. And it's also in the minutes, that answer.
Question?
Select person Bailey.
Thank you. Do you, if you'll go to line 044754, the equipment, $3,500, do you have a listing of what equipment you plan on purchasing?
Right, just the desks.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Right now, just the desks, as far as I know, that's all we need. We have bookcases and file cabinets already.
You're gonna buy chairs?
But ours, they're ours. Pardon me?
You're gonna buy chairs?
You have chairs?
Okay. Thank you for your help. Thank you.
Any other questions from the select board? Select person Air?
I don't know who to thank, but you or Connor, but I guess I get 10% break my taxes.
Well, I think you get to thank department head for keeping it in check.
Excellent point.
And any additional questions from the advisory budget committee or any commentary?
No, I think we appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Thanks for
Thank
being here,
you.
Linda.
Holidays.
Thank you.
I probably won't see you.
Everybody, by the end of this week, everybody should get their Christmas card from Linda in the form of please pay your property taxes by December 18th.
Are going out tomorrow, but they won't be due until December 16th. So
Hitting them right before
At the-
Christmas.
we didn't, right before Christmas, but we didn't have a choice.
This is
Thank
Linda's
you.
Super Bowl. Tax bills due. There's never a friendlier face than you'll find in the tax office with Linda, and now her able-bodied deputy, Crystal.
Right. Moving on, the next item under budget presentations is the town clerk and elections.
Our esteemed town clerk, elected Kimberly Karakis, accompanied by the elected moderator, Ron St. Jean.
I know.
Nice try.
I thought that was quite sly.
Joke's on Ron. No.
I know, we're gonna go right in the middle.
Oh, geez, yeah, you got my good side. Is there one? No. I'll share.
All right.
So the town clerk budget, nothing. There's no special requests in there. Questions on the town?
Person Bailey.
Sure. The last one, election equipment, you have it down there for 33% increase in, okay, it's $500. I withdraw my question.
Just town clerk question first, that's all. Any for the town clerk budget?
That's why I withdrew my question. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No problem. Anyone else? Is it still accurate that we're looking at roughly a 6.5% reduction, 6.39%?
Or,
Oh, never mind.
that would be no.
Yeah.
Must be contagious.
My wife's working against me. She cleaned the office and I just grabbed a binder and walked.
So as it stands right now, which this will be slightly different information than you have in your budget binder because this takes into account some of the adjustments we made to the process. George, you have it right in front of you. What's the percent change at the beginning of the process?
On
The last,
11.93.
yeah, so it's down to 9.74% is the increase as it stands right now.
Increase or decrease?
Increase.
Increase.
It'll be 20?
And that'd be a good time for Kim to talk about where that increase is coming from, which is the election budget, which is because
We have 3 elections next year.
Right.
Or if we count the deliberative, which kind of is a mini one. That's where the increase is coming from.
so you'll see the additional money in election wages, the printing and coding the ballots. So those are, we had 1 election in 2021, 3 in 2022. So that's where the lion's share of the increase is from. And the reason we had a 6% decrease the year before is because we had 4,
Right.
but from 4 to 1.
And we had,
6 down, 9 up.
Yeah.
Still a net loss in my world. Is there anything that the advisory budget committee wanted to comment on there?
On this item, no, talking about something with.
I'm sorry, I'm having a
Hey.
hard time hearing you.
I just make sure that this number is the correct number for the part-time wages in the first budget.
are we talking about election or town? Which budget are you talking, election or the town? 03, I mean, 414.
Right.
03. Yeah, that's election. That is because there's the 3 elections. Just want to make sure.
Right, so everybody is good there. Select person Mantrek?
This does include the deliberative session, is that correct?
Yes.
Question was, are we going to have a remote part to the deliberative session? That Jane had mentioned, they're doing that other else.
You know, that's up to the select board if you folks want to offer that again.
The voting.
Oh, are you talking about people like us doing it like we do this?
Correct.
I'm assuming so.
Well, so last year what we did, part of the problem, and I'll say problem, part of the potential problem is that in order for folks to participate other than just passively, other than just to watch what transpires, We need to have a way to be able to verify their identity, to know if they're a registered voter and know if they can vote. So last year, we made the decision, the collective decision, to allow live streaming. So people could, from the comfort of their home, watch what happened. It was a great recording of the deliberative session. The team did a great job, but no virtual participation was possible.
I would agree.
The school made the decision to allow folks to participate, which generally the participation in their deliberative session is a lot less, which was true with last year's deliberative session also. So the risk you run is if you have enough people that want to virtually participate, the logistics of verifying all of their identity, that they're registered voters, and tabulating their votes could quickly get out of hand without something to verify people, which we had asked the Secretary of State's office last year, how are you, recommending? And they simply said, we recommend that people don't allow people to participate virtually. So that's kind of the nuances around it. None of that has changed. It's not any easier now to verify somebody's identity over a virtual participation connection. The school is willing to take the risk, thinking, hey, if we've got 5 people, there's probably enough people in the room to say, yep, they're registered, they're voted, they're here. I think at this point, I would probably recommend against virtual participation, but I would certainly be a proponent of continuing to stream the festivities.
I agree. I believe in streaming it, but I think virtual participation gets into a absolute nightmare for us.
Potentially.
I agree.
With the school district, people were able to speak from home, they were not able to vote. Kind of a hybrid.
And by law, you need to be a registered voter to speak. So you should have the same process whether you speak or vote. But maybe did they waive any potential? Did you waive any potential speaker from the requirement to be a registered voter, or because like when we have department heads from out of town, the moderator will say anybody that is, the beginning of the meeting, Marcia Gassis can speak because she's a town planner and she's waived from the requirement.
Yeah, we had the same kind of guidelines for that meeting as for the town meeting. But there was guidance from the the attorney for the school boards that we were able to allow people to speak.
Because presumably you could waive, just like we do for out-of-town department heads, you could waive anybody from home that wants to speak the requirement that they be a registered voter from town, and that way we don't have to verify whether they are or not. But I think that's a little bit bigger of a venue than we operate here, and so certainly be up to the select board to decide.
I can tell you personally, I would not be a fan of that because it's essentially like waiving our voting rights laws, and I wouldn't support doing that. But we have them for a purpose, and bypassing them would not be the best decision for our town. I don't want somebody from Florida sitting here deciding to weigh in on our stuff.
It's a risky run.
Select person there.
I know we're getting off subject, but how about mass and unmass?
We'll cross that bridge as we get closer to it.
Great idea.
I wouldn't, I mean, there's too much shift and pivoting going on right now around the state. I wouldn't want to make a decision in November that doesn't impact us for almost 5 months. Select person Sakoshi, you started to say something.
Yeah, I have no interest in having virtual participation. I think that's a can of worms, and or could be, and I think those who want to speak will be there to speak.
I just asked the question. It would allow perhaps more participation.
Anything else? All right. Shall we move right into the conversation around,
This is 9A under old business, electronic poll pads.
yes.
I provided a quick update in my TA report. Town clerk's office staff attended a training with the city of Rochester. Myself, Kim, Ron, and a couple of others went to the Rochester elections on November 2nd.
Mhm.
And I got to see them in person, talk to the city clerk in Rochester, understand about their process. We are all still very much supportive of moving forward. I'm looking for the select board to share that support tonight. The only change in the recommendation, it's really quite a waste of money to lease the equipment. You end up throwing about $6,000 out the window by the time it's all said and done if you end up buying it. And so what we recommend is purchasing the units for $9,375 out of the 2021 budget. Of note, there's some $6,000 available unspent in the election budget. Money's fungible, a dollar's a dollar, but if that is of interest to you, that information is available. And so looking, and then finally, we still do plan with the support of the select board to reduce time wages for the 2022 budget from $22,000, $6,000 reduction to $16,000 for the 2022 budget. And so Kim and Ron are here to answer any questions, and hopefully we can make a decision.
Select person there.
I love the tech committee so much. But these iPads, how long are they gonna last? We buy them and they're only good for 6 years or 5 years or whatever.
There.
That's why the leasing all.
Well, that's why the upgradability that they had expressed to us from the LHS. It's a contained unit where they will be able to provide that to upgrade it.
Dan, what we're buying has a lot less to do with the hardware and a lot more to do with the software. So right now, the equipment to replace a unit of one of those iPads, she said was like $350 because it's a stripped down Wi-Fi only iPad. So really what we're paying for is the service, is the software. And so she said right now they recommend a 6-year replacement cycle because it's such a light lift the software is on those iPads. They're plugged into power the whole time, so you don't have battery life issues. That they recommend a 6-year replacement cycle, but the replacement cost isn't even really that high in comparison to the purchase.
So I know that you folks talked about this at the last technology committee, and unfortunately, I had a conflicting meeting at the time, so I wasn't able to be on the call. And I guess that was the piece that caught my attention is when we look at the cost on it, could we build our own system? It has to be state approved.
And that's why this is just they're allowing us to do it because that's where we're going. We're headed that way, and certain towns and cities have already used them, but there's only a very few that are approved. I think it's only the one we've seen through LHS is where we have AccuVote machine, and then there's another one that's a laptop, but I'm not a fan of going with a laptop. The iPad seems to be the easier way. It's through the company that I've used that I know gives great support, so.
And then did you feel like, walk me through your experience as you saw it in Rochester?
It was very quick, and I spoke to the clerk after the election. She said they checked people in so quick, they had to hold off because they didn't have enough booths for them because it was such a quick process. The clerk is the one who uses the iPad. They check them in, you can scan their ID if they authorize it, so that's just an easier format. It's just much easier. I don't know if you've ever seen, you've probably never sat, we've never had any of you sit down to check someone in through a checkbook. It's just a little more tedious, it's more exact. The receipt that prints out has their name and their address. Any information that could be changed would be changed over at Suzanne's area, the supervisors, they would have a receipt. It's just a streamlined process to help us get to where we need to go. The receipt is really very helpful because it has all the information that we can maintain, bring over to the check, have to take it to the paper checklist and check it in. So it doesn't have to happen immediate. You have a stack of them and then eventually you take it over. But I think it streamlined it very much. I can only imagine going forward for the busy elections, that's where it'll really come into play, where we won't have the logs on any letters because there's no letters. Whatever amount of poll pads we have, you can go to anyone.
And one thing to that point, the buzz in the town clerk's world is that this is likely going to be required by the time we get to the next presidential election, if not sooner. And so when Kim first came to me about it, I had asked her, hey, why now? And she said, well, I don't want to be trying this out at a presidential election or even a state general election. I'd like to be able to have a chance to be familiar with it and get the benefits from it, which I think makes a lot of sense.
I agree. I mean, just looking at if we, excuse me, if you estimate that on the busy years, we're going to save roughly $6,000 a year in election labor costs.
Well, like I said, it depends when it gets completely put through. I still will have a certain amount of people that I have to have working the poll pads and then checking off. But I don't know if it's as many because I usually had 10 to 12 ballot clerks. So we'll have a little bit less than that. Once we get it streamlined, it's up to the state for them to eventually say with a paper checklist, we still have to manually mark the checklist. So it's cutting back, but not as much as you might think unless they completely do away with the paper checklist. That would be a huge savings if we're able to see, we would need much less.
Right. I'm just looking at if the part-time wages line drops by $6,000 next year, and next year's a midterm election cycle. So we won't see a $6,000 reduction the year after because it's already going to be a lower reduction, but
Correct.
The next election after that would be a presidential
Right.
election.
Which would increase.
Right.
But not as much as it would without it.
Right.
Right.
Which means theoretically we should see enough out of it within probably 3 election cycles that we fully recovered all the cost of the process, plus start seeing a net gain out of it.
That's our goal.
Select person Air, then select person Bailey, then select person Sakosha.
Well, I don't know the correct term, but the volunteers, the staffing is getting harder everywhere around stuff. So that's a benefit that way.
Mhm. Yeah, it's hard. Just to get some people around, right? Sometimes.
Well, last year we had a surprising number of people volunteer, new people. We had a lot of experienced people that didn't because of COVID, but we had quite a few other people step up. So we had eventually we had an abundance of people to use. Now we're asking people to work 11 to 12-hour days. And that's a lot to ask, especially for, people my age, stuff like that. But I think with this system, it's going to be a lot easier for people doing that job. They're not going to be thumbing through, a big book of names and trying to read it after 10 or 11 hours, or it's just extremely tiring to do that for that long. I think this system will help us with the accuracy. It's going to, automate a lot of what they're doing, make that job a lot easier. And we might actually, when we don't need as many people, maybe we can start doing more half-day shifts, and not everybody's going to have, 7 to 7. So, I think there's a lot of benefits to this besides whatever we might ultimately save on labor. I think it's just modernizes this whole task. What I saw was impressive. I think in designing the software for this system, they've anticipated so many different scenarios of things that happen with names and addresses and all kinds of things. And they went over a lot of that in the training, and it was quite impressive. So I think this is just going to help us with accuracy, and kind of the first step on upgrading the whole equipment component of the election.
To be clear, the elections are accurate, but accuracy is
Always
efficient, is more efficient with the poll pads than accuracy with the thumbing through all the pages of the books.
Yeah.
For the record.
Keep hearing a lot about the accuracy. Select person Bailey.
Thank you. But first question is on updating for the people that are deceased, and what that system is. And then, Mr. Chairman, ask you to phrase this question. Is there any way that an outside entity can get into the pads or whatever? I don't know how to say that. Is there any outside
Russians.
No,
can get in?
No, they're not connected to anything.
That's a question. Thank you.
It's a good question, though.
Yep.
And that's why we brought in
Everybody.
the technology committee, and they reviewed all the security documents
The updating of folks who are deceased is done.
by the
The-
supervisors of the checklist.
for the Secretary of State, it's a conjoint,
There's,
through them. We get notification from the Secretary of State, deceased in the state, and then Susie, the supervisors take care of that.
is that annual?
I'm sorry?
Annual?
Yeah, it should be annual.
Well, yeah, it happens ongoing that they get the
Right.
notifications.
So the state gives us a notice and Suzanne makes the notice into the iPad or?
Well, no, there's different, the iPad is just an electronic checklist. We don't do any kind of other changes in it. That has to be done through a different form, it's an election. That's how we contact and do all of our printing of the checklist and other reports.
It's a state software called ElectionNet that has existed for a long time. So that's still where the checklist will be maintained for things like changing registered voters, adding or removing.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I couldn't find the word.
We don't want you to vote when you die either, George. Since the kosher.
If we really think that we're gonna get strong arm from the state and this is how it's gonna be for the polls, why don't we just wait for when the state goes, okay, you gotta do this now and here's the funding for it. Why don't we wait till then?
But then we'd have to come up with it. Right now, we're in a situation where, like I said, I have about 6,000 unspent in the election budget, which is what, 2/3 roughly of what I'm asking?
Yep.
That's what I'm just trying to think, because it is the way that it's gonna go. It'll make my job much easier. It'll make, well,
The state,
Ron's job.
they're just gonna.
They're never gonna pay.
They got grants that come out for half of it.
Now, the state will never pay for, because they never paid for our AccuVote machines. We paid for those. So, I mean, it's just part of the process. But it's way basically to go, because it's very efficient. It's just, make everything easier.
Well, I would like to say I am an old soul and I do like seeing the people there and talking with the people in town, so.
You still get to do.
You still get to do that.
Now it's more time talking,
You're
less
just-
time looking for.
You're just gonna do
what?
it. You're gonna do it with one hand.
Sakaoka?
SAC, I'm right, I'm like number 2 or 3, I think, in the essence. I'm not far down.
Select person air.
As a select person, I have my signature on that box. Last 5 years, I physically watched staff come to the votes and stuff. There's no hanky-panky going on. They do a very thorough job and stuff. I don't say a word. I sit back and just watch.
Well, we know you're an observationist.
Exactly.
Chief election observationist.
That's right.
Don't forget a farmer,
Yep. No, he's a poor farmer.
poor farmer, sorry.
Select person Mantrek.
I move that we take the necessary steps to implement electronic poll books
Second.
in the collection purchase equipment. HS Associates, $9,375 using funds available in the 2021 operating budget incident fund.
And I second your motion. I would have spared you from the long read, but
Thank you.
Here I.
Mancheck, aye.
Haley, aye.
Sakosha.
nap aye. All right. Congratulations,
Thank you very,
helping town into the 21st century.
thank you.
Tonight is a
Thank you. Thank you.
nice late night. Thank you very much. Staff reports.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of things that I want to cover under staff report, things that have come up recently. First, the contractor for the town hall is ready to hit the site maybe as soon as Friday. And as part of that, they'll be submitting their building permit application to the building department. So at this time, I'd like to ask the select board to formally waive the fees for the town hall building permit.
Make a motion to waive the fees for the town hall building permit.
Second.
Seconded roll call by select person Bailey, roll call vote.
Here I.
Mancheck, aye.
Haley, aye.
Nap,
Sakosha abstain.
nap aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Chief Walker wanted me to ask the select board for permission for the fire association to use the parking lot at the fire station for their annual Stuff a Truck event for the upcoming holidays. It will either be the 27th of November or the 4th of December. So consensus or a vote is fine on this.
Sakosha, aye.
Any objections?
No objection to the fire department,
Fire
or
association,
fire
yep.
association.
Normally, or
I don't think we need to.
I have no objection.
Yep, that's all I
If the
need.
board is good with it, then I'm good with it.
Okay, last item. So I met with the Town Lands Committee Chair this afternoon. They've made great progress with the RFQ for the failed subdivision down the south part of town off Garrier. So we don't have a final RFQ, but I'd like to advertise the RFQ before the next meeting. The RFQ is going to be pretty simple and, just solicit proposals from developers that they're interested in developing that lot. We'll include a note in there that talks about some of the goals that we had from that document the select board reviewed, and also give a plug for consideration of some over 55 housing like the select board and conservation commission supported. So I'm more just giving you this update and opportunity to object. Typically, I would put the full document in front of you before we advertise it. Most everything's going to be in there, and I'd like to keep the process moving because we don't meet again until the 29th, I think. So opportunity to object.
Select person air.
so I got a question, we invite, obviously, can we invite any other additional people in too? Look at it? Or does it have to be all to the paper? Because I don't know if there's a Greystone builder, built a bunch of houses in there. I don't know if you pick up on that, or you could contact them.
We can contact anybody we want once we advertise something. And we generally do for specific items. And I know that the Lands Committee has talked about some developers they think might be interested. And once we get it advertised, that's perfectly appropriate. The more eyes we put on it, the better. And the chair and I also talked about having a non-mandatory meeting for anybody interested on December 4th, I think it was, which is a Saturday, that would start probably at the Public Safety Building and then go down to the site. So anybody that's interested could show up, and that would be an opportunity for, a builder that might not have the resources to, purchase the property to hook up with a developer that's there interested in acquiring the property, if that's part of it.
And the second question to that, who's that go through, you or the town land?
Everything that's advertised in town goes through me.
Right, but if they made a phone call, that the board can.
But it should come before the board at some point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So how we have it scheduled right now is that the board would be prepared to make a decision December 27th. So they'd be due December 13th, and then the select board make a decision. The reason for the timing is because we need the decision ratified by town meeting. So it end up being a warrant article.
Right.
So for those of us with children, rather than reading 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, we get to read Garrier Drive RFQ.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
That's You're not gonna run for election, Andy? Really? What? This isn't so fun?
The irony of it is I had a meeting with the other day, and they gave me a document to sign. It was with the Eversource, and I'm reading the document, and they said, "Can you tell us what's in it? Because we've never had anybody actually read the document before." And I said, "You're asking for my signature. Why would I not read the document?"
Can you tell us what's in it? Love that.
Yeah. So just the irony of all of this, and the timing around it. Does it have to be the week going? I just want to make sure we have ample time to read through this.
Yeah, so the proposals will be due back December 13th. So they'll be available for all select board members on December 13th. So you'll essentially have 2 weeks to read through the materials before the meeting on the 27th.
So get your Christmas shopping done before the 13th is what I hear.
I mean, just 2 weeks. That's a decent chunk.
What about individuals that might not be in the area for Christmas?
Board members?
Yes.
As long as a quorum of the board is present.
Okay.
I'm not talking about
I understand that.
2 days after Christmas.
But
How
I'm
long
just
is your
saying,
Christmas?
Are you holding all of us?
Honestly,
hostage
that's-
to be here.
That is a week that's a tough, I'll be candid, it's a tough week because it is typically a vacation week with children and.
You can make the decision the next Monday, which is the first week in January.
Yep.
But I
Personally, I would feel better about it because I'll be honest, like, that is a week where I probably will take some time off to head north and do some skiing with my wife and my son.
Okay.
I was gonna suggest that on the 27th, we might raise questions.
Have them ready to be answered for the first? Or not the first?
Well, we don't
but
have
the
a meeting the
13th.
27th.
Oh, we don't?
Oh, we just have to make a decision?
Well,
You wanted a decision on?
there would be,
My calendar is.
it would be.
I know, now I'm looking.
It would be to add the meeting. It would be to add the meeting, but there's no meeting scheduled. In my mind, which I'm fine doing something different, but in my mind, if we got it resolved before the January 3rd is our first budget hearing.
Yep.
And so if we had it resolved before then we could advertise the kind of full details ahead of the budget hearing. Truth be told, nobody's probably going to be paying that much attention, and I don't think it's absolutely critical. It certainly isn't required by law, but I think we can put enough in the budget hearing to let folks know that there's going to be a warrant article about that subdivision and awarding it to a developer. And so I guess that January 3rd will be the last opportunity to make a decision. And so, we'll get everything distributed on the 13th and get a recommendation as soon as it's available. And if the board members do have questions to help them make a decision, we'd need it ahead of time so we could have it resolved at that first meeting in January.
Well, let me ask the dumb question. Should we cram in a meeting for the 20th?
Recommendation might not be ready then because the lands committee is going to meet that Saturday, which is the 18th, to go through their recommendation, and they may have follow-up questions for the developers. I'm comfortable with the January 3rd.
I am as well.
Yeah.
Is everybody else agreeable to that?
Tree, let's go.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. That's,
We can individually raise questions.
yes.
Yep.
We'll know it by the 13th.
Yep.
We'll have it available.
Because it'll be my evening reading with my son every night.
Yeah, that was the night before Gary.
Right.
subdivision.
Which was yeah.
I'm gonna sneak in what I want for Christmas.
And all through Garrier Drive.
Harrier Drive.
George said he's putting in for Santa with the beard. So
So I'm going to apply for the position.
Yeah, you're putting in for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all I
Spend
have.
town's money.
And for the record, Municipal Office Administrator Cotto was previously excused for site speak.
Yes. We've already covered old business, so new business, the winter contractor fuel allowance.
So Mark's on, I'll let him unmute himself. Hopefully you have enough details in my report to give you a good background. This is something that Mark and I both think are important. And I'll give Mark an opportunity to kind of just hit the high level explanation of it and then be available to answer questions.
Okay, good evening, folks. We got a potential situation developing here because of escalating fuel prices. The hired contractors have voiced concerns about fuel has gone up $1 since last year when they got their last raise to $95 an hour that you gave them. So basically, that wipes out about $5 of that raise. If fuel goes to $4.50, which it's well predicted to, and beyond that, that will basically negate what you had given them last year. So this is not a new problem. The way the state deals with it is they basically give the private contractors a fuel allowance based on the AAA historical fuel averages for a certain given area for a certain period of time. So basically you start out at a base value, which in our case was easy to track. Last fall, just before winter, November going into December, it was about $2.50 a gallon. So that's our base. And anything above that is multiplied by a consumption factor, an average engine consumption factor of 4.2 gallons per hour, which is very realistic in my book. And the sum of that is basically added to their check to compensate for the rise in fuel. It's a better means of dealing with it than just, say, well, okay, we'll just up the rate, because then if the price of fuel goes down, now you're basically stuck with that hourly rate. They're not going to want to go backwards. So this is the way the state has dealt with this problem for a lot of years. Back when I was plowing for the state, we were quite a few years with a fuel allocation, and it worked rather well. It's just if fuel goes to $4.50, $5, it really is going to cut into the profit margin. It's going to cut into the will to want to come out and do this. And let's not even talk about the cost of a tire now for one of these things. It's all ridiculous at this point.
We'll just get some off-road diesel.
Well, and that was
Yeah.
that was actually an item I wanted to clarify. Is, are we talking when we say the fuel price, are we talking the gasoline price or the diesel price?
And that's
Both.
why it's standardized with AAA, the gasoline.
Okay.
So
Both.
right. So there would be two different base values historically. The price that you're seeing in front of you on the agenda, that's the base value for diesel. Gasoline would be, if memory serves me, at that point in time was
2.12.
maybe down, maybe 2.2 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Select person there.
Personally speaking, the iPhone, the $4.25, $5, I can relate to that, my own vehicles. But if there's a snowstorm, if it's wet, I burn twice as much than powder. So there's a variation of that too. In wet season, there's a lot of fuel consumption.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very common, not just in plowing, but other construction jobs and stuff. Been 6-8 months out, you don't know the price of fuel.
Yep. I don't have any issue with it. I actually think it's a good way of handling it. I'm agreeable to it. Is the rest of the board or somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to that. Want me to read it?
If you're comfortable with what's written, we'll use that in the minutes.
Please do.
Seconded by select person Air. Originally, he had a.
Jim was second than him, but I was.
Okay. So seconded by select person Sakosha originally then. Roll call vote.
Air eye.
Mancheck, aye.
Bailey, aye.
Sakosha.
Nap aye.
Thank
Public
you, folks.
safety bill. Nope, thanks a lot, Mark. Public safety building roof replacement discussion.
Okay, so this has been an item that we knew was coming up for a couple of years. We had planned to tackle either next year or the year after with the budget appropriation. The school has been competitively selected and has been working with a company, the Melanson Company, for roof work for the school district. And so Jim was talking to them about their availability. They have the availability to tackle the job this year. We currently have a balance of $25,000 available in the building maintenance line. Jim Toll, excuse me. Yes, thank you. Jim Toll, school facilities manager. We currently have a balance available that would help cover a part of the cost. There would still be about $45,000, which would not be properly budgeted, but we have enough budget surplus to be able to cover through efficient spending of town departments. So at this point, to avoid appropriating funds in the future, either in the 2022 or 2023 budget, I think this would be a great project that we could get off the list. At their last meeting, the budget committee, in trying to figure out room in the 2022 budget, was asking myself and department heads to consider what 2022 expenses we could potentially cover with the 2021 budget to avoid additional appropriations next year. And so I think this would be a good way to do it. It's a big dollar item, but it's something that's going to be necessary. The roof's almost 25 years old and is in need of replacement.
Select person there.
What, have I just heard this correct? There's no scope work, apples to apples, what's being bid, and you get one company, we're talking a major, over $10,000. Why do the scope of work out there and stuff, and then have people do it, they'll have one contractor give you a price, especially with the supply demand and stuff, there's certain projects, or products you cannot get, and stuff, that's why you should have a list, how many square this, and have everyone bid it.
So the Melanson Company was competitively selected by the school, which
Not the school.
so, but we've used that in the past. That's in our purchasing policy that they were competitively selected, especially with facilities projects. We've been able to take advantage of the efficiency, especially where the school facility manager is overseeing the project. And so, yes, if the select board wanted to take the traditional approach, bid the project out with the scope like you're talking about, we could absolutely do that. The only thing that we wouldn't be able to do if we did it that way is get it done this year with 2021 budget, which I'm not saying that's enough reason to only do it this way, but that would be a consequence of doing how you propose.
So
That does not make any sense, it's not competitive and stuff, and then you don't know what we're getting. So scope of work and stuff, and I don't believe that you even come up with this idea.
select person Sakosha.
I'm curious to know what the availability is on material. You know, if this is gonna happen yesterday, if it can.
Yeah, they were in contact, the school facility manager, Jim, was in contact with them last week, and they weren't concerned about supply or availability of the company to do the work.
Select person Bailey.
Thank you. I have two things is that I would like to see if you go out for bid, see if we do asphalt and metal. As far as availability goes, I signed a contract last month for redoing my house with a metal roof. I'm told the earliest they can do it is in February because of the money supply. And that was just the answer to your question.
A money supply?
Not the money supply,
Metal.
the material supply. Thank you. The other M word, you're absolutely right.
That could be an
All right.
issue.
So, I mean, so Dan has a good point. Also, I just feel that, you know, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
So, my feedback on it is much the same as Dan's was. I'm concerned about the idea of not bidding it. I can also, I won't discuss it in public, but I would be candid with discussing my relationship experience with folks. And not having a very clear and well-defined scope was a concern to me, as well as having a ironclad warranty around it. I think all of that should be scoped out in advance, and I'd rather than us use the funds this year, I would actually rather see it be prepared for in a appropriate fashion. My other concern was looking at that roof. I don't know if I was sold that roof is fully at the end of its life at this time. And I'd love to see a report. Is it leaking? Yeah, I was gonna say, I wouldn't mind seeing a roof report. Cause I can tell you, I have my roofs analyzed and evaluated every year, twice a year on my facilities.
Just one clarification, it is scoped out, and I'll pull it up to give you some of the numbers. The part of the process that wasn't, is that scope wasn't advertised competitively. Because the Melanson Company was selected competitively from the school, we got a number from them. So it's 13,000 square feet, includes disposal, water shield, 6 feet at eaves, 3 feet in valleys, 18 inches up the sidewalls, new 3200 aluminum strip edge, high penetrations reflashed, 21 linear feet of aluminum fascia. So it is, I mean, there is a clearly defined scope. It just wasn't a scope that was advertised because they're competitively selected and they're available.
Clarify, this is not the school department. Our budgets are run totally different.
Same facility manager.
Select person.
Yes.
Yes, I just want to say, I share your concern about this not being bid through. This is a pretty big project to kind of piggyback onto school. I would prefer to have it bid out.
Select person's. I would prefer to have it bid out too, because I mean, just some quick math, we're looking at $5.50 a square. So.
Understood?
2022 property tax rate.
So obviously last week we talked about it, it was breaking news that day. I wanted to circle back, make sure it was on the agenda. The documents were in my report for anybody that follows those documents. The new document you have tonight is the tax rate setting document from the state. You'll see that it's hole punched because there's a spot for it in your budget binder, in your
2022 budget binder.
So,
Want that knife back?
so these state forms can sometimes be hard to read, but their value, in my opinion, really comes when you start comparing them year over year, which is why you'll have the 2020 tax rate setting document in your binder there. And so, you know, if you just look at, you know, on the cover page, it tells you that the tax effort, that's the money approved by voters that needs to be raised by taxes. And that's obviously a direct calculation of what our tax rate is and what the different categories of that are. You also see on the front here, those war service credits. That's where that gets added back in for what our property, or for what our property taxes total effort is. On the next page, it gives you by jurisdiction what the total appropriation was, and then also what offsetting revenue exists. So on the municipal side, we had a total appropriation of $7.8 million, and we collected locally $3.8 million in revenue, and we appropriated $538,000 from surplus. Those were our warrant articles from unassigned fund balance. You'll see down bottom, we add back in the war service credits that you saw on the front page, and overlay, which is for prior year abatement. And so that's where we get our local tax after $4 million, which when you divide that by our valuation of 1.3 billion, you get the town tax rate of $2.95, $2.95 a thousand. So you scroll down, you see the county is just an apportionment, and then for the school, on education, you'll see their voted appropriation was 24 million. They have education grant of 4.6 million. The local retained state education tax, property tax, 2.1 million. And so their total, which is summarized as education in most documents that we put out, is just over $20 million. Finally, the last, well, it's all good information, but one of the last really valuable pieces of information is on the back page. So on the last page, you'll see that our general fund operating expenses are $30 million. That's the number that we use to figure out what our targeted fund balance is. So if you look down, our currently retained fund balance is $4.1 million, which represents 13.33% of that fund balance. So our target is 12.5%, which is the midpoint of the range, 5 to 17, as set by the select board's policy. And we have, which is 13.33%. One of the things that does is give us additional flexibility during the budget setting process this year to use fund balance. Last budget presentation, we talked about another warrant article paving, other items like that. So we're in a very comfortable position on balance wise. Last thing, both documents, like I said, are linked in my report. They're on the town's website. We encourage anybody that has questions to review those documents. Then don't hesitate to contact the town with any questions or concerns you may have. Any questions from the board?
Thank you.
Tax bills, as you heard, will be out this week.
Just in time for Christmas.
Right. And you can view your tax bill right now, because you're subscribed to New Hampshire Tax Kiosk. You can view and pay your tax bill currently. If you navigate to nhtaxkiosk.com, the link's also available on the town's website. You can see your property tax bill, pay it. You can also see your tax, property assessment card.
Can you look up for fun information for folks who have homes in other towns? Can you go to the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration, look up all the other towns currently as well?
Yep.
So you can see what the new tax bill is for them.
Yep.
As we speak.
So
See, for those of us who are fortunate enough to have additional property.
they update it weekly, through the tax rate setting process. But you can get an Excel file or a PDF of the 21 tax rates. Something that I plan to do, so just, so this is 2021, gives you by,
Never is.
yeah. So if we're just looking through the local, good document to look through it. I plan to do an analysis from it. But I'm scanning the first page here, and the first one that's less than $2, which ours is $2.95, is, first one here is Columbia. Their total tax rate is $15.31. Another one that's less than $3, that's the only one on the first page. $2.84, Hampstead Community.
Oh, don't cut Groton out of that one.
They might not have they may be like a region or something, but yeah, Groton's 55 cents, their municipal tax rate, $8.95, probably a village.
Let's go.
So that's still only one. Who's this here? Monroe, $2.08. So obviously that only tells you a piece of the puzzle because that doesn't tell you what their valuation is. But another interesting data point is
Theoretically, we're probably in the top 10% of lowest tax rates for municipalities.
Yep. And in the top probably 10% of communities of value with 1.3 billion. I mean, that's our top 25. Very interesting.
We were prepping for dinner and I made a comment to my wife saying, after looking at the tax rate items, I was like, I should run for the school board. I didn't know she could throw a pan that far. A cast iron skillet.
The star doesn't even show.
I hope it
No.
was one of
got-
value.
All right. Select board reports.
Town lands, has not met, but thought try to describe what's going on with them. Conservation, I met last week. I was late. I went to Dickie K's wake. And they talked about their, bylaws and the MOU and stuff, and then they're checking on other documents to make sure they don't mismatch and stuff. And that's almost the meeting time I got there. I don't know what happened earlier. But that was it.
Select person Mantrick.
You see that the budget committee's report. Transfer station committee did not meet and school board meets tomorrow. And budget workshop last Tuesday. But they'll be a regular meeting tomorrow. I will attend.
Very good. Select person Bailey.
Thank you. Tomorrow I have a library meeting, and on Wednesday I have,
Select person Sakosha.
All is well over at the rec department. And basketball is starting up. The shade structures are being delivered and just plugging away as normal.
The technology committee, unfortunately, I missed because I was on a conflicting meeting that I thought was done at 4:30 and didn't get over until almost 5. So that didn't happen. Planning board is, I think, tomorrow night. So I have a planning board meeting. And that is all that I have. Meetings this week.
Another plug, because I know that we're gonna hear it during deliberative session and elsewhere, other places, that nobody knew about the zoning, potential zoning changes. So the planning board tomorrow night will finalize the zoning changes that they're going to propose to voters and establish a date for a public hearing. That public hearing will be widely advertised to give folks an opportunity to come out, express their support or concern for zoning changes. In my opinion, I've sat through most of the deliberation. I don't think many, or if any, of the changes will be largely controversial. A lot of them are clearing up issues that keep coming up through the application, which is pretty common of the zoning ordinance. That said, I wouldn't be surprised, given Barrington's history, if somebody doesn't try to make something controversial. So the town is going to do everything it can to make sure to prepare and advertise accurate information about not only the intent, but the consequence of these zoning changes. So folks know what they vote on. Because importantly, the language of a zoning article cannot be changed at deliberative session. So your opportunity to weigh in needs to happen now.
Good. Final public comment.
If you're participating virtually and you'd like to make a public comment, you can raise your hand or enter a chat in the comment in the chat box. If you're on your phone, you can press star 6 to unmute yourself.
See anything coming in?
Nor do I. Last chance.
At this time, I will close the final public comment, requesting a non-public for the purposes of personnel and reputation.
I'll second that.
A roll call vote.
There I.
Nantrick, aye.
Bailey,
Sakosha help.
Nap aye. Good evening. Welcome back from our non-public session, where we covered personnel and reputation. The only announcement we have is we addressed a personnel issue that we will be taking action on to help productively move forward. And that is it. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Select Person Manstrick, seconded by Select Person Sakosha. Roll call vote.
You're right.
Aye.
Scotia.
Nap aye. Thank you very much and have a good evening.